I'm looking for you for an answer. Okay.
Kelly Jones, thank you very much. So I understand your dad was a professional singer.
My old man's record was on the jukebox in the local pub because my old man had to deal with Polydor when he was a kid before I was born. And he was managed by the same guy that managed the Hollies. So when he did his recording sessions, he was doing them with Ron Richards, the London Philharmonic. George Martin was on some of the sessions. Dudley Moore was the piano player. So I used to hear these stories. My old man didn't talk about it much. I would have to kind of overhear it or drag it out of him. But his record was on the jukebox in the local pub, which was a track called Simple Man by Graham Nash. So that was kind of intriguing, I guess, as a kid. My older brothers were playing Eagles and Led Zeppelin and Dylan and Neil Young and stuff like that in the bedroom. But my old man had this record on the jukebox, so if there was a seed that went in my head, I guess I found that quite different to what the other kids in the area was dealing with.
And that's another world, isn't it, to imagine that. So your dad had gone on this adventure to London, I guess, in another age, in a black and white world, probably.
Yeah. And then I followed him around the workingmen's clubs when he jacked it in professionally when I was a kid, and I would carry his speakers for £5 and listen to him do all sorts of tracks from, Neil Sedaka through to Sam Cooke and, all sorts of really good kind of songwriters, soulful people. And I guess I picked up quite a lot from that, really,
So you're being exposed to great songs, great form of songs from a very early age.
Yeah, I mean, my older brothers didn't really want to hang out with my folks at that point, so I was the youngest, 9-year difference, so my mother would buy me a bag of crisps and I'd be watching my old man on stage. And his guitar player was the guy that ended up giving me lessons once my dad bought me, like a cheap £10 nylon acoustic. And after about a year of it sitting under the couch, I decided to ask him for some lessons, and he taught me how to tune the guitar and do some scales, and he taught me how to play Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison on a nylon string guitar with this much gap between the string and the fretboard, which was, I can remember almost being in tears with that. It was a nightmare.
It's painful.
It was very painful, yeah.
I know people say that it gets easier once somebody hands them a proper guitar.
Yeah, it was all right when I had a Les Paul copy with a fuzz pedal. It was all right. That was a lot easier.
So what sort of age were you then when you started to get those guitar lessons?
That was about 10 or 11. And then I was living in number 54. Stuart Cable was living in number 62. And Stuart had his drum kit when he was about 14, 15, and I was about 10, 11. And I'd be playing Highway to Hell by AC/DC in my bedroom, and he'd be playing it in his bedroom, and the neighbours in between had to listen to the both of us, so we decided maybe it's better we get together, and rather than pissing off 6 people or 7 people, wherever it was in between. We ended up going to rehearsals every Sunday in the local youth club, and did my first gig under the band name of Zephyr with Stuart when I was 12, and he was about 15. We went in and out of different bands from there, really.
So you're always around older boys. So you're not necessarily being exposed to the music that's on the TV.
No, I never really liked it. When I used to go in the car with my father, I never used to like the sound of the radio. So I used to take this big silver tape recorder and put it on my feet and just play Back in Black or, Creedence Clearwater Revival or whatever. I don't know why that was, but I just didn't like the way that the pop music sounded on the radio. It didn't really appeal to me. And having 2 older brothers, I was always being babysat or looked after by a big gang of boys playing 3-car brag, listening to rock and roll music. So I was always listening as opposed to speaking. I had no right to speak because I was too young. So I guess a lot of the observational writing and a lot of that stuff was around... And I was allowed in the pub at a very young age because my old man knew all the pub owners because obviously he was a singer. So I was called Baby Oscar, and I could actually go down the pub, and they used to send me to the pub in my pyjamas to go and get Betamax tapes out of the drawer at the back room and take them back to them babysitting for me. I was allowed to look in every drawer apart from the top drawer, which I'm assuming was porn.
And did your dad take an interest in your songwriting from the get-go?
I didn't really let my dad into the room for a while, to be honest. And I remember singing in the local club when it was empty, just doing rehearsals, and he walked in one day and started listening to me when I was about 13 or 14, and I was singing Let It Be, and I stopped, and he just said, just fucking carry on. And I thought, right. So I carried on. And I never wanted to be the singer, you see, but because my man was the singer, I was pushed to the front. We had 3 or 4 different singers all the time in bands, but they were like, you should be singing because your old man's a singer. And Stuart particularly, you know, Stuart was probably my biggest fan in writing and in singing. And he would push me to the front all the time. And I never really enjoyed the singing part of it till I was probably about 18, and that's when I started writing the songs that I wanted to write about. So when they both came together as one thing, then it kind of made more sense to me.
So just continuing in that vein a bit, I mean, what's it been like for your dad to see all of your achievements?
He's been really supportive. My mother has, you know. Very dry people, my mum and dad, very kind of honest. They're not like a lot of parents where they would just tell you you're amazing all the time. You know, they'll tell you if it's not so good, you know. I remember doing Top of the Pops once, actually, first time I ever used it in Inuit monitoring. And I'd never used it before. We sang a song, and it was a song called Movie Star, and I remember walking to the dressing room, and I knew I'd fucked it up. I knew he wasn't very good. And he was in the wrong key and everything for me. Just one of those songs you record in the studio, but it's too low. Anyway, I went in the dressing room, the record company going, no, it was great, it sounded great, it looked great. And I was like, nah, I haven't had no text yet, I know it's not. And then he texted me and said, that's the fucking worst I've ever heard you singing. And I had to hit the bar in the hotel, first with my fucking head and then with a bottle, because it was shite. But they're very honest with you, you know. And I liked that, you know. And that was kind of come round now, 20 years later sort of thing, when my dad used graffiti on the train, I could see he was very taken by that as an album. But the first song I ever seen him look at me in a rehearsal room, like he's packing up his bag of leads, because I obviously didn't wind him up properly for him, and the jack plug was probably going to fucking break when he was on his gig. I remember there was a song called Poppy Day I'd written, which was about stuff in Northern Ireland, all that. Probably recognised it because of my brother and stuff, so I remember him looking up and seeing that, yeah.
So can you tell me about writing Traffic?
Traffic was... most of the word gets round had been written and recorded. On that album we would jump in and out of different studios in the middle of our first ever British and European tours, or American, wherever we were going, when the record company first signed us. And we hired a Ford Mondeo. I remember hiring a Ford Mondeo, and I can remember the smell of that car, that plastic inside a Ford Mondeo. And I had to always sit in the back with the bass drum because I was a crap map reader and they wouldn't trust me fucking driving. So I was always in the back with the bass drum, and we were literally stuck in a traffic jam, probably on the way to do a session. I think it was in Parr Street in Liverpool. That's where we recorded it, and I just remember looking out the window in a traffic jam and seeing this one woman driving a car. And it stemmed from simply where is she going, and then trying to come up with as many different scenarios as I could of what that woman could be, if she was a woman at all, or, you know, is she, you know, a call girl? Is she a teacher? You know, is she a nurse? Whatever. And it just kind of, it was the first question kind of song I wrote, where you're asking all these questions to the audience, and then at the end, or in the choruses, it kind of wraps itself up in, is anybody going anywhere, really? And in the metaphor of a traffic jam. And that song kind of blew my mind, really, because I didn't really understand where the fuck that came from, or how I even wrote that at 21. I think I was 21, 22. Because I remember presenting it to the boys and they kind of go in, it was different to the rest of the word gets around. He was almost ready for the next record sort of thing. So it was a segue kind of song, you know. It's kind of a country song, really, you know. I kind of, most of my writing does stem from kind of country style writing, you know, Eagles, Creedence, that kind of thing. It's got that kind of country G and C minor, you know, all that kind of stuff in it.
All face the same way, still it takes all day. Take a look to my left, pick out the worst and the best. She paints her lip greasy and thick, another mirror stare. She's going where? office affair to kill an unborn scare. Talk dirty to a priest, makes him human at least. She running away, start a brand new day. How's she going home? Why's she driving alone? Is anyone going anywhere? Everyone gotta be got a body in the boot, just bags full of food. Those are models' legs, but other women's are their men's. She shouts down home, Mr. Payment on the loan. She gotta be above the rest, keeping up with the best. Is anyone going anywhere? Everyone gotta be tables for a crook. You wrote a hardback book to teach kids how to read, or sell your body on the street. I'm just without a job, another uptown snob. But have I got you all wrong? We're looking you up.
Do you think part of the enormous appeal for your work, really from the beginning, has been that you're telling stories that people can relate to?
Where I was living, it was such a small town. There was one road in, one road out, and it was literally like living in a goldfish bowl. So you'd hear lots of people telling stories all the time, and I was quite fascinated by those stories. And Sometimes they were tragic, sometimes they were very, very funny, and most of the time people were drunk telling them. And I always thought a song had to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, you know, and tell you where we start and tell you where we're going, and then at the end there's some sort of resolution. That's the way I liked songs. I didn't really like just throwaway lyrics, you know. I wanted to write something that people would stop and listen to. I've never really wanted to write any song that I didn't feel or experience firsthand. I think people have got an incredible bullshit detector, and I think if you're going to sit in that room and say, I'm going to write a hit today, I know some people do that for a living, but I don't really want to do my work like that. I wouldn't believe a guy who painted a painting and just thought he was doing it to make money. I think that's a different thing altogether, you know. All the best films you like, all the best songs you like, all the best paintings you like, they've come from a place which people have really felt or meant, or felt pain, joy, mystery, wherever it might be. It's come through you. You know, sometimes you don't choose it, it chooses you sometimes, and it just channels through you, and I really kind of believe that. I think if you're going to contrive it, I think people can feel it.
Looking back, you achieved some pretty big success quite quickly, and suddenly you've got a big audience and you're doing big live shows. What's it like seeing 25,000 people singing your words back at you?
It was, I guess the first time I experienced it was, we had like Cardiff Castle and then the Morpher Stadium thing, and then it went quickly to like headlining Glastonbury on a Saturday night in the Pyramid Stage, and there was like 90,000 people there. You know, I was on a headlining our third album. And that's kind of an out-of-body experience, really, because you're singing songs that you've written sitting on your bedroom floor as a kid. And then all those people recognise what they do, and it comes back to the same point again, really. If people have had some experience in their life that you've had as well, then there's a connection, and that's what I think. You know, obviously there's a melody and there's a catchy chorus or wherever it might be, but I believe when people really, you know, like get onto a song that really means something to them, there's some sort of human connection. And Dakota is the perfect example of that, because I recorded that in 3 hours, the whole fucking thing. You know, he was on a tour bus in America doing a David Bowie tour. I bought myself a little Fender Mustang with a racing stripe on it from Chicago Music, and I remember sitting in a hotel room in Vermilion, which is in South Dakota, because the song was originally called Vermilion, because I liked the name and I liked the colour. And then Slipknot came out with a song called Vermilion. All the hard drives that they recorded in that song is called Vermilion. It's not even called Dakota, and he's just about to go to print, and I said, fuck it, call it Dakota. And I wrote that in a bedroom, in a hotel room, and the line made me feel like the one came out, and then you go, well, what does that mean? Where the fuck's that come from? And then you have to make the whole song make sense of somebody that made you feel like the one. And I've still got the page, the whole 3 verses just came out, not even scribbles, nothing, just went straight through. And that, if you could bottle that, because when we played live, the first time we ever played that live on that tour, and it was the first #1 single we had, I mean, it was like a fucking Zulu, you know. It was unbelievable, the reaction of the people almost coming at you on the stage. So I don't know what that is. That, to me, that's magical. I'm not saying it's magical because I did it, but when I see that with other bands in the particular key songs, when that happens, I have no idea what that is. But that just comes from somewhere, I guess.
You make me feel like one. You make me feel like one. You want. You make me feel like one. You make me feel like one. You want. I don't know where we are going now. I don't know where we are going now. never went far. Didn't need some good far. You made me feel like the one. You made me feel like the one. The one. You made me feel like the one. You made me feel like the one. The one. I don't know where we are going now. I don't know where we are going now. With a cup of coffee and juice, remembering you, what happened to you. I wonder if we'll meet again. Talk about life since then. Talk about why did it end. You made me feel like the one. You made me feel like the one. The one. You made me feel like the one. You made me feel like the one. The one. I don't know where we are going now. I don't know where we are going now. Take a look at me now. Take a look at me now. So take a look at me now. Take a look at me now. So 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 take a look at me now. Take a look at me now. Look at me now. Take a look at me now. Take a look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. Oh, look at me now. Take a look at me now. Take a look at me now.
I remember certainly from my point of view as in the audience thinking, this is the perfect record for this band. It felt like a game changer.
Yeah.
And so to hear you say that it happened so naturally, I hope you'd forgive me for thinking that it might have sounded like, right, we're going to really do something a bit different.
I'll show you, right?
Yeah.
I'll show you something on this, because all that song is, it's basically Traffic sped up. Traffic is there. And then Dakota's there. And because I knew the Traffic was going to be doing something for me, when that song came about, it's a bit like when I heard the stories of like Knock on Wood and Mustang Sally and all these songs where all the old soul guys would just turn the same song backwards and then they get another fucking record out of it. I'd never tried that, and I did that one day, and then this other melody came, and it was almost spoken, and literally when that line, "You Made Me Feel Like the One," came, the whole thing changed, and it was very, very natural. But it's the only song I've ever written where I text the record company guy and I said, I think I just wrote a hit. It's the only one I've ever had, and I had it right. Up until then, I thought some of the other tracks on the record should have been released, but they never fucking picked them.
Is it harder writing fast songs?
I think you get into a habit of enjoying writing mid-tempo songs because if you write on acoustic, you tend to write a lot of that. And that's why on that Bowie tour, when I was watching him every night and he was doing all the Trent Reznor stuff, I'm Afraid of Americans and all that. And then I did some shows with the Strokes in Japan. And at that point, we were doing a soul record. You got to go there to come back. I had 3 backing singers with fucking 8-piece band, rugs all over the floor, lava lamps, joss sticks. And I said, fuck this is all got to go. And we burnt them. We chucked all the rugs off a ferry. We set them on fire and threw them over the side of the boat and fucked that. And we went back to a 3-piece, chopped all our hair off. And I didn't write another song on an acoustic guitar. I bought all Fenders. I ditched the Gibsons and just changed my tools.
So do you write for album projects or do you write all of the time?
I try to keep the tap dripping. But then people think that I'm doing it all the time. I'm not, you know, a lot of the time in between records, I purposely won't pick up a guitar for months because then when I do pick it up, I'll find something or go to some place. I don't walk around with notebooks. I'm not recording everything I'm saying. I haven't got notebooks by the side of the bed. It ain't like that, really. It's just a case of I recognise when I need to press the red light on my phone or on a tape recorder. If I just pick it up and something happens, I'll just press record if it's worthwhile. My biggest flaw is I never listen back to half of it. So when I come in to do new albums, we have to listen to about 90 ideas, and most of them are nothing, and some of them are something. I wouldn't say it was measured. I would just say that I recognise the feeling when it happens. That's the only way
I think that's a
describe
really
it.
great way of putting it.
I can feel it when something's about to happen in that way. And if it's starting to feel like homework, or you know you got a record coming up and you're in the house trying to carve a fucking masterpiece out of a big chunk of wood, then it's probably going to be shit.
Tell me about making the new album.
The new album was the last 3 albums particularly have been great because it was the first time we had our own studio, and to be able to go on a regular basis to chip away stuff is a lot nicer than having a clock ticking and a producer saying I've got to be out here to go to the next session. So on that side of things, it's been very freeing. And in that way, you can make lots of different styles and types of songs which don't necessarily go together and you don't feel boxed in. So I really enjoyed that part of it. And there's a lot of different styles of songs on the record, you know.
Well, specifically, let's talk about Caught by the Wind.
Yeah. Caught by the Wind, again, goes from the C to the A minor. It was a song that I wrote on the piano. So I didn't know I was going from the C to the A minor to the F again, but I was. And I felt it was a very strong piano melody, and I thought it was worthwhile exploring it to a degree where this could be a good song because the melody was good. I didn't want to write anything lyrically that didn't really mean anything. And it was just after all the stuff that happened in the Bataclan. And I played the Bataclan when I was a kid, and I've written like bits of screenplays about visiting the Bataclan and stuff like that. So it did hold a lot to me, that place, that venue. I remember hanging out there a lot when we were on 1997 tours and stuff. So when the thing happened with the Eagles of Death Metal, it affected me because people had come into our work environment, if you want to call it that, and hurt people who go out to have a night off and celebrate stuff in life. And I thought about it, and there was a lot of that stuff going on at the time, and it still is, obviously. And the first couple of lines, I was also reading an article in a newspaper about Goldilocks and the wolf in the forest and stuff like that, about some storyteller one day. And I just thought, you know, the wolves in the woods don't play by the rules, and from mouth to ear, everything's possible. I thought the song was going to become a little bit darker than it ended up, and then I started making the chorus be a lot more celebratory, really, about people celebrating the innocence of their youth, and whether you're just lying on the grass looking up at aeroplanes or all these images I remember when I was a kid. Again, going back to the imagery of youth, really, from that age between about 14 and 18, where everything felt golden in many ways, you know. Yeah. And that came through in the chorus, so it was commenting on a real-life situation through people, but then rather than trying to hide from it and be anxious about it and change your life about what all this stuff does, he was almost going, well, fuck that, I'm not stopping living where I'm living because of that. And it almost got me out of it, because I was starting to think, I'm not going to Paris on tour again, no, I'm not going there, I'm not doing this anymore, you know.
all sing. The swallows dive through the summer nights, something beautiful money just don't buy. Help yourself to what you want, get caught by the wind, believe that you can fly, celebrate everything. Sunbathing on the roof, watching aeroplanes, believe that you can live, yeah, forever and a day. Don't say it's over, it's never over. It's always time to change and start again today, right now. Those in the woods don't play by the rules. From mouth to ear, anything's possible. Help yourself to what you want, get caught by the wind, believe that you can fly, celebrate everything. Sunbathing on the roof, watching aeroplanes, believe that you can live, yeah, forever and a day. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Celebrate everything. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, get caught by the wind. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Get caught by the wind.
So for you personally, you've resolved something within yourself.
Yeah.
A sad story has got a relatively triumphant sound to it, actually.
Yeah.
But then for the audience as well.
I think that's what it does do. I think a lot of the time you are writing about yourself, even though if you're trying to give it to somebody else, you know. When I wrote about Maybe Tomorrow, trying to find your way home, I literally had left Wales, I'd ended a relationship, and it's like a grieving process. Maybe tomorrow I would find my way home, but I didn't know at the time it was about that. I had no idea it was about that. But only looking back at it now and I look at the circumstances I was in, that was definitely to get me out of my own situation. And I think I was seriously anxious about all the shit that's going on in the world, especially when you have a family, about putting yourself in these situations and these environments and stuff like that. But you end up writing something that kind of changes your own mind, you know, and or you know, you can't preach it if you're not going to do it yourself, sort of thing, you know.
So Kelly, you seem to find inspiration in many different places, and I understand that you're really into film, and Stanley Kubrick in particular.
Yeah.
How does he light your imagination?
Attention to detail, you know. I think he said something like, well, are we going to do this or we're not going to fucking do this, you know. I can't stand working with people that only want to do half a version of what you're doing. It does my fucking head in. If you're going to do it, then do it. You know, I'll come in every day and work on the detail, but other people don't, they can't hear the detail. They can't see the detail. Of course, it does get borderline fucking crazy and OCD or whatever, but I've only started to maybe think of that in the extreme version lately. I genuinely feel that if you're going to be creative, then it needs to mean something. But at the same time, I do understand it's just a fucking song on the radio. I do get it. I'm not going to go around and talk to people like shit about it. I would be very respectful to whoever's working me, but if the people that are with me doing the job don't want to do the job as well as I want to be doing the job, then I don't really see the point in them being there.
Having that drive and that obsession, that attention to detail, which is perhaps, shall we say, out of the ordinary, is a factor in why you would bother to write hundreds of songs.
I'm really grateful. I'm in a band where, you know, Richard's always backed me up, and Adam and Jamie in the band, and Stuart was it. They always backed me up in my drive for that. I was the one saying we got to go back in the studio. I was the one saying I got another bunch of songs. So a lot of other bands would have an argument over that, but I never had that. I had support to back up whatever that was, if it was craziness or workaholic or whatever fucking tag you want to put on it. But I didn't feel in that because I feel really laid back about it. I don't feel frantic about it. My brain can get frantic when I'm in the middle of the project, but when I'm in touch with it, I just feel that's just a natural way of trying to get to the end of something. It's the process which is interesting. It's not, I don't really like listening back to a lot of it anymore. When I was younger, I used to enjoy listening back to it, but now I can't listen back to it without picking something out of it. So I prefer to keep moving and doing stuff with it, you know. And that's why the live thing is great for me now, because I've got 10 albums to pick from, and I can change and swap around that whatever I want, and there's lots of different styles of music. So it's about the attention to detail is important, because without it, then you wouldn't have any staying power. You have to put the work in to get something out of it, which goes back to the working class ethic and the drive and all that stuff. It all kind of comes back around on itself, you know.
When you broke through, it's true to say it was a great scene at the time.
Yeah.
You know, so I remember very clearly that, you know, people were going into record stores and they had 20 bands to choose from.
Yeah.
There was really good stuff around.
Yeah.
It was a strong period, wasn't it? The landscape's very different now.
There's not a scene, not like it was in the mid-90s and through 2000. There's not a scene for us in that sense, but there is a scene for, I guess, young people who are checking out music for the first time on Spotify and streaming services. You know, we go to countries in the world where we've never been before, and they're all, I think there's more people listening to music in the world now than there ever has been. So I think on that sense, I think it's very exciting, and I feel very proud and excited by the fact that, you know, our third single off our 10th album is playing alongside Rag and Bone, second single on his first album, on the radio, and we're still making records that are being played on the radio, and it's contemporary. And we're not banging on about fucking some seminal album from 1998, you know. It's not about that for me.
Can you tell me about What's All the Fuss About?
I think What's All the Fuss About is about, the first verse anyway in particular is, when I did the graffiti on the train tour across America, I didn't really enjoy it. It was like 5 weeks on a bus, and being on a bus wasting time, really. I had family at home, and it was starting to bring me down a bit, really. So when I got back home, I remember getting back home and picking up my oldest daughter from school at the gates, and I just remember her coming out, and she'd obviously felt the same as me, and I'd felt the same as her, and when she met me, we couldn't say anything to each other. It was a really fucking weird, strong moment, which I can't quite forget what that was, but it was like an unspoken thing of relief on both ends, and she had like a red hairband and stuff like that. And then the song developed from that feeling, really, of, you know, you go around in this rat race. I don't really know why, because I don't really know what you achieve by it. You know, you hear this story in the 70s, you have to travel on a bus to break America, all this fucking crap, or whatever, it's inbred into you like a damp injection, because all it does is make you feel fucking damp anyway. And I came back and I just felt, this is what makes me feel more alive. And I guess the song then questions from boyhood to adulthood, and goes in and out of many different things, really, and it's kind of dressed up in a Windmills of My Mind kind of song and Leonard Cohen kind of poetry sort of thing at the end, and the atmosphere of the song just took off and took over, really, and it asks a lot of questions and a lot of expectations in your life that you all have to live up to, or we believe we have to live up to. And I guess at the end the question is, well, what the fuck's it all for? You know, I guess it's a bit of a meaning of life song, but I wrote this sitting in my car waiting for my daughter in film school, fucking 2 hours in Balham.
2 hours very well spent.
It was all right. It was a good back half of the song.
Fantastic. Kelly Jones, thank you so much.
Tie your hair in a red band bow as you grin them by the grave. and drop your neck scarf on the floor. I fight my mind 'cause I want to think that I'll be evermore. Oh, what's the fuss all a pale pink, the young girl sneeze. The swings in the park and the ghost in the dark. The truths in the day and the secrets we share. The things that we learn and the things that we earn. Embarrassing days and mistakes that we make. Jet streams in the sky, gone in the blink of an eye. Heavenly hugs and the shoulders you shrug. Bully, the boss, and the priest and his cross. Letters we write and the wrongs you can right. The space that we need in the loneliest weeks. Blows in the wind, repenting our sins. The games that we play and the changes we make. The love and the light and the smiles you ignite. Skin on skin. The life that we chase, it feels like a race. Get to the place with the pride and the grace. It's hard to replace the touch of your face when you're so far away. Are you lost or you found on this merry-go-round? What's all the fuss about?
Okay. How are we doing?